John, I feel compelled because Illinois is a two-party consent state when it comes to recording to let you know that this conversation is being recorded.
Could this be used against me?
It could, yeah.
In a court of law?
Yeah, or on the avclub.com.
Okay, I'll do my best then to keep it on the up and up as we talk about Click this week on Polite Fight. As always, I am John Tatey, always has been, always will be. Always has been, what is that? And here's Gus Spellman. He always has been Gus Spellman too, or he always have been, as the case may be. We are here to talk about Click, the season finale of Better Call Saul. I'm kind of sad that our Polite Fight journey is at an end for this season.
Yeah. It's too bad. Well, at least we're doing the finale this time.
Yeah,
At least we're not postponing it a couple
No
months.
babies this time. We made it all the way to the end. Let's get right into it with, I think, the big debate, at least in the comments on our site that came out of this, is Chuck versus Jimmy. Is one of them evil? Is one of them more evil than the other?
Which one's more of an asshole?
Who's worse? Okay, well, you have comments for us?
Yes.
Get out your damn phone and read the comments.
All right, jeez. Yeah, a lot of debate. I have a few comments that I think kind of sum it up. Meth Lab Shenanigans takes the view that Chuck made Jimmy the way that he is, and Jimmy's just internalized it after all the years of emotional abuse.
Mm-hmm. That's the Kim position.
The Kim position.
Yep.
On the other side of that, Agent Jack Bauer Junkyard Cat says that Chuck didn't make Jimmy take the money out of the cash register. Have Chuck's actions pushed Jimmy away from an honest path? Sure, but Jimmy is no victim. And Saul Goodman, I think.
Saul Goodman himself,
Okay. Says it all basically says.
Oh, it's Saul Goodman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Says it all depends what your definition of wrong is, I guess.
Saul Goodman comes in there with just the "it depends" conversation over, but he's right.
He's right, yeah. The most impressive thing for me is that the show works no matter which side you're on. It's not like there are people out there who are saying like, no, I actually like Chuck and, I think the show has really bungled it or whatever. I think everybody likes it, even though they disagree.
Wherever your sympathies lie.
Yeah. I think that's really an impressive
How hard is it
thing
to keep it on that edge where you can continue to debate it and where, my mind has changed about Chuck any number of times this season. This is some high wire emotional storytelling.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's a surprise crucial player for me in this Chuck-Jimmy debate, and that is Ernie and the choice that he makes. There was this one shot that I immediately wrote down on my notes, just Ernie in foreground, Jimmy in background, I wrote in my notes, because I was so struck by this shot. Why are we looking at Ernie at this moment? That was the question in my head.
This is before before he lies to Chuck.
Right. It's such a striking shot, and they linger on it for a few seconds. It seems to me the show is saying, don't forget Ernie's here. Mm-hmm. And then his choice becomes so crucial. And I think the fact that he goes with Jimmy works to get us on Jimmy's side, right? Because if this fairly neutral observer, this quiet guy, decides to side with Jimmy, then we can feel a little more okay about having our sympathies lie with Jimmy.
Yeah, and he reminds me a lot of Omar, who's sort of a similar character from Davis and Maine, Jimmy just has a connection with people who are like, clearly this is a nice guy, and I think that helps us get on Jimmy's side, even though, I sort of expected him to be a little more touched or thankful to Ernie, which he's not. And his connection to Omar, we can see how shallow it is when he doesn't even know that this guy has kids, So
right.
To me, it does help us feel a little more sympathy, but it also, maybe I'm expecting too much of Jimmy, but I feel like
I think that's great. There is a little distance that remains between them, right? Even though they both have this irresistible loyalty to Jimmy that he doesn't quite return.
Right.
So in this flashback, we have this shot of Jimmy going up the hall with these glass tiles in the background and just this hazy white light coming through them. It turns Jimmy into a figure of darkness. And then when they get to the waiting room, the camera pulls around and frames these two guys in the center. And again, now they're two dark figures. And I think that this gets at how they bring out the darkness in each other. When they are together, gloom is sure to result. Mm-hmm. Then, when he gets that call from Howard, look, he's framed again in front of these glass tiles with this white light. Yeah. So to me, this sets up the following scene where, okay, Jimmy is going to be pulled back into the darkness. And then we end up with Chuck on the couch with this white behind him. It reminds me of that hospital waiting room scene. So my takeaway is, inevitably, when you have Chuck and Jimmy together, they are going to bring out the darkness in each other.
Yeah, I love that. And I was struck by something else, which is these close-ups of Chuck. You've got him in the background with the windows. So when they're doing a close-up of him, it basically looks like a normal environment. You wouldn't know the rest of the stuff is around. But then when they switch to your Jimmy close-ups, he's got all this foil in the background. And to me, it subtly hints like Chuck is thinking clearly and is not being affected by this. And putting the foil all in the background of Jimmy's shots shows that he's fallen for all of the accoutrement. Like, that's what is in the back of his mind.
Right,
and
right. Sure, because he's dazzled by all of this, right, and really thrown by it. Like, when he comes through that foil curtain, like, he loses his bearings entirely.
Right, exactly. And it reminded me of how we talked about last week. Chuck takes off the cape to give his case to Kim because without this foil, he seems less crazy.
I have a slightly different spin, although I agree with the direction that you're taking it. Now he's using the apparent weakness that the foil lends him to his advantage.
Right.
And that's scary, and you can understand why Jimmy does not see this coming and is so thrown by it.
Yeah, and I love the camera movement that opens this scene. I think really articulates it. It's all one shot. Jimmy enters, and it goes around to show the whole room before they show you Chuck up on this ladder here. It shows you the lengths that he's gone to trick Jimmy are just as crazy as the insane lengths we saw Jimmy going to. Right. Like, this is the same as going to the copying machine place and, like, meticulously cutting out all that stuff and then photocopying it, where it's just like...
Sure it is, because what did Jimmy do? He cut apart tiny squares and he glued them back together.
It's the same thing. Great.
Right?
Yeah, I love that.
On a large scale, he's just taken these foil squares and patched them together.
And you have Chuck rummaging in his garage. He's got this intense yellow cast on him. It really reminded me of the Xerox machine color that sort of like washes over Jimmy as he's doing his...
that green light. Yes, both this sort of artificial feeling cast that he puts on them. Sure, yeah.
What else with this foil scene? I love that he's gone to the trouble of putting his plants back on the windowsill
the
after
clock's
foiling
on the
them
mantle.
up. And
I think the clock is an important presence. This whole notion of the ticking clock, which we've talked about all season.
Another ticking clock-like sound that you brought up happens in this Mike sniper scene. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. Both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul take such nice advantage of the fact that they're set in the desert. And we're way out in the middle of the desert for this Mike sniper sequence, and the sound design is crafted to match. The sound design is so desolate. We have this bug setting what feels to me like this metronome-like rhythm. The seconds are just ticking off. It speaks to Mike's intense focus and also his patience, and then that sound drops off suddenly. And then we hear the horn, and there's a whole sequence where he's looking at the cars, and it can't be there. So all of the sound we have really in this scene is the bug, a short silence, and then the horn. There's just this electrifying anticipation of the horn. And what is the horn? And look, that's three sound design choices in this long scene that managed to tell this totally gripping story.
Yeah. For me, the horn, what's great about it is the way that they give you the faraway sound of it, and then the close-up sound of it, and then the faraway sound of it again. It gives you this very tangible sense of another presence watching Mike, which I think is what really makes it so electrifying. As you said, there's somebody else here, and you don't know where they are. We might as well quickly hit a few other points. The commercial that comes right after Jimmy's Viva la Tabula Rasa pointed out is a commercial for a weasel.
Weasel garden tools. Great catch, Viva la Tabula Rasa. Also a fun commenter name to say. That's just a funny little touch. Yeah, and so I think it speaks to what's going on in Jimmy's. We see this picture of Jimmy McGill, a lawyer you can trust. And trust is underlined. Trust this guy. And we have this shot of Kim looking up at the TV, and her face is just glowing. It's just almost idolizing Jimmy, it looks like, which is just, we're seeing Kim before the fall.
Somebody in the comments mentioned we don't get a lot of Kim in this episode. And the only other scene that we really get with her is the first time we've seen them like functioning in the office together. And I think you really get a sense, it's low key, but you really get a sense that this is not gonna work for them.
No, and it's, why haven't we thought of it before? Kim has one client,
Right.
And Jimmy's, he's on TV, he's trying to get this flood of people in. Of course that's gonna be
And then you have like the rainbow that we talked so much about last week. I sort of just assumed the rainbow is going to get painted over in the course of their thing. It's never going to work for Kim's clientele.
Right. But for Jimmy, it's perfect, right?
Yeah.
So the rainbow stays. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, very curious to see how it all plays out for these wonderful people next season.
Yes, but for now, our journey is at an end. Thank you so much for watching Polite Fight this season, and your comments fuel our conversation, so we can't thank you enough for that. For Gus Spellman, I'm John Tatey. Thanks for watching Polite Fight. So long for now.
Bye, guys. Should we say that we're going to be back next week doing...
Yeah, should we put it after the logo? We'll put a little thing after the logo.
Oh, okay.
Hey, if you enjoyed Polite Fight for Better Call Saul, tune in next week where we will be doing Polite Fight for Game of Thrones. You may have heard of it, a somewhat popular television program
Very different
on
kind of
the
show.
home box office network. Yeah, it's going to be a very different Polite Fight, I think. But we'll
Sort of appropriate for that show, the polite fighting.
Yeah.
With all the political maneuvering.
The politic fighting, yes, exactly. So hope you'll watch. We'll see you then.
Bye, guys.